Hey travelers, Mag, I, JJ, and Stoner here on day 309 of our trip around the United States. Aichan and I have been running pretty hard for the last couple of weeks and have managed to finish off most of what we are doing through the counties and the pages for the country. But we're tired and we could definitely use a break. And what better way to do that than with our longtime friends that we served with in Okinawa back at 12th Marine Regiment than JJ and Stoner. So we're gonna be taking the weekend off at a nice, easy, relaxed pace, but we do still have that geocaching streak to maintain. So we're gonna get out there to the town of Emmett and we're gonna go ahead and make some finds in Gem County, which is going to be the last county we need to finish off Idaho in its entirety. From there, it's just gonna be Oregon, Washington, and Northern California, and we'll have wrapped up this adventure completely. Gem County is going to be a gem of Idaho. There are quite a few things to see in Emmett that I'm hoping to be able to show you guys. So let's get out there and see what our last county in Idaho has in store. Come on, let's go.
Our first stop in town is to the sawmill that had opened its doors in 1913 as the Boise Payette Company. The sawmill had been, by far, the biggest employer in Emmett even through its transition as the Boise Cascade Company in 1957. It remained in operation for 98 years until it finally closed its doors in 2011. The engine on display here, capable of generating about 2,000 horsepower of electric energy and moving 50 tons of water per hour, is all that remains of the sawmill that once was. While only about 45 minutes from the populous capital city of Boise, Emmett manages to maintain its small-town feel along the banks of the Payette River. Several murals guide travelers on a journey outdoors, including mountain biking through the rocky terrain just outside of town. My personal favorite, though, was the depiction of the Idaho Northern Railroad arriving to Emmett in March of 1902. It left us tempted to hop aboard a train at the nearby depot. Interestingly, Emmett, with a population of about 6,500 people, is the only city in Gem County. It was first named Martinsville after Nathaniel Martin, who had built the ferry crossing. The name was then changed to Emmettville, and eventually the ville fell off completely.
That's it. This little gem of a county completes the state of Idaho for us. Now it is time for us to head over to Oregon and get started on the next part of our adventure.
While exploring our way around this little jewel of a city, we happened to come across the Gem County Historical Society and Museum, and wouldn't you know it, their doors were wide open for us. In the early 1900s, this 48-mile-long, 22-mile-wide county became known as the Gem of Plenty by early fruit packers because of the fertility of the valley. It continued to live up to its name as the focus for the region shifted to mining. Prospectors referred to the potential riches to be found in this valley as the Garden, a bountiful orchard of possibilities just waiting for someone to come along and harvest it. By 1862, the gold rush had come to the Boise Basin in earnest. Many arrived in the valley that year using the Payette River Road. By the next summer, crops had started to spring up all along the length of the Boise Basin mines. Two of the main trails that settlers used to reach the valley joined together at the Payette River. It was at that trail junction that Nathaniel Martin and Jonathan Smith in 1863 together built a ferry to cross the river. It was around this river crossing that the community, then known as Martinsville, started to spring to life. The ferry crossing allowed the townsfolk to not only manage local trade, but also heavy traffic from the Basin Trail. Just a year after the ferry crossing was established, Doc Burge arrived with his family and opened up the first store and grist mill in town. And while that grist mill hasn't been in operation in quite some years, those grinding stones can be found on display right in the middle of Emmett City Park. There are fascinating historical tidbits just like this to dive into everywhere you look inside the museum. But if you take a step out back, you can also explore a couple of locations, starting with a one-room schoolhouse. When Emmett was just coming into being, one-room schoolhouses like this were the norm not only through the county, but throughout the state. As you walk between the desks toward the blackboard, you can practically hear the chalk scratching onto its surface. This one-room schoolhouse was designed specifically by the Emmett Retired Teachers Association to resemble any one of the 22 schoolhouses spread across the district at the time. Right next to the blacksmith shop, which displays a wide variety of pre-industrial fabrication tools, you can find the bunkhouse. On display, mounted along the walls, are many of the birds and animals indigenous to the county. Some of these include coyotes, bighorn sheep, cougar, and deer. Much like the main museum building, this is a room that you could spend a lot of time getting lost in the details. The deeper we looked, the more questions we had about what we were seeing. For our last stop around the Gem County Museum, we come to the Hunt House. This turn-of-the-century cottage houses the belongings of Governor Frank W. Hunt and his wife. Governor Hunt had served as the 5th governor of Idaho from 1901 to 1903. Their daughter Catherine was kind enough to donate the house and the belongings for historical display. The house is staged just as it would have been during its heyday, with Mrs. Hunt ready to entertain guests. Walking through this piece of history, it's easy to imagine the governor hard at work at his desk, or his wife ready to serve a lovely dinner at the set dining table.
Oh, hey there. It's the 1950s catalog. This one's a good one. I'm gonna be in here for a little bit, but I'll see you guys out there on the trails.
Along the north edge of the city, just south of the Gem Island Sports Complex, you can find a parking area leading you out onto the 1.1-mile walking trail following along the course of the Payette River. Knowing that we would be taking it easy for the rest of the day, I immediately saw the opportunity to get Ai-chan out and get a little bit of exercise. She was reluctant to leave her princess room in the back of the car, asking me, "Aren't there any parking grabs left in town? Do we have to take the trail?" But once her paws had been able to eat up a little bit of ground, she was in it to win it, following me all the way down the path. The entire length of the trail, we could hear the soothing sounds of the river flowing just north of us beyond the screen of trees. Where they would thin out, we would catch brief glimpses, but its sound was our constant companion. On the other side of the chain link fence, we could see the old Boise Cascade sawmill. Seeing as how the sawmill had been the point of interest for the virtual that started our day, it seemed only fitting that it would be the point of interest to finish it off along this trail. Ai-chan asked me, "When are we going to turn around?" About the time we reached the half-mile marker, and that was it. I had been waiting to make any finds along this stretch until we hit the turnaround because Ai-chan would definitely have taken that as the signal that we were done. And sure enough, after we inked up the first logbook, she was turned around and heading back toward the car. A great day spent caching through our last county in Idaho.
All right, and that wraps up the Idaho portion of our trip. We had an opportunity to go into the county seat of Gem County in Emmett, see the county courthouse, get to tour that awesome Gem County Museum, see many of the beautiful murals around town, and get to take a nice mile round trip walk out along the river to wrap things up. I hope you guys have enjoyed the time that we have spent here in Idaho exploring the state, and it was nice to take on at least one state without having to worry about those DeLorme pages, especially given how mountainous the terrain in the northeast part of Idaho is for us. Now, Ai-chan and I are going to relax with Stoner and JJ for the rest of the weekend and get ready to get back on the road tomorrow. Thank you guys for joining us. Like this video, subscribe, stay tuned for updates, and we'll see you out on the trail.